Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Book Review Blog. I am your book reviewer, and today we're going to review the book The Hobbit by JRR Tolkien. I had wanted to do this before the movie had come out, but that didn't really work out, so I'll still do a review of it anyway. If you have not yet seen the movie or read the book, The Hobbit is about a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins, and to be describe what a hobbit is, it's kind of like a man, but they're shorter, and they're even shorter than dwarves. So, again, if you haven't seen The Hobbit or really The Lord of the Rings, then that's kind of the description of a hobbit. This book starts off with the hobbit of Bilbo Baggins just sitting in his house for a little bit, and he's visited by the wizard Gandalf the Grey. And Gandalf kind of comes over with a little proposition for him, and he says, "How would you like to take part in an adventure?" And Bilbo is a common hobbit where they don't really like to go on any adventures. They really just more like to sit in their hobbit hole and just kind of sit around and eat and drink and just kind of enjoy life. So hobbits are very fat, if you can kind of assume, because they don't like to work. They just like to sit and eat and drink. And so Bilbo is like, "Oh, no thanks. I'd really not like an adventure today." And Gandalf leaves him, and Bilbo thinks this is the end. But later that evening, Bilbo is interrupted not only by Gandalf, but by 13 dwarves. And their names are Balin, Dwalin, Bilfer, Bofer, Bomber, Dori, Ori, Nori, Oin, Gloin, Fili, Kili, and they are led by another dwarf named Thorin. And the dwarves have this adventure planned for themselves, and they would like Bilbo's help, where they have been digging for gold for a while, and the gold has been taken by an evil dragon named Smaug. And Smaug is keeping this gold for himself in this mountain. And so they want Bilbo's help as kind of a burglar, and because he's small, they want him to kind of do their work for them and get the gold. And for compensation, they say, "If you do this, we'll split it 14 ways." So Bilbo gets a little part of this gold. And again, originally he doesn't want to do this, and he still doesn't want to do it because, again, he said, "I'm a hobbit. I don't like all this." And so his house is still invaded by these dwarves, and they end up leaving the next day. And Bilbo then decides that life is kind of too short, and he will go with them. And so he goes with them and goes on their journey. And they go along the way, and along the way, there's, of course, if you're familiar with The Lord of the Rings, there's other creatures in this Middle Earth, which is where they are. There's the first thing that they encounter are trolls, and so they have an encounter with trolls, like I said, and the dwarves really kind of get themselves into a lot of trouble because they have a lot of enemies. And so the trolls get Bilbo and the dwarves and put them in sacks. And then with Gandalf is with them at the time, and with his help, because trolls are very stupid. If you are, again, familiar with The Hobbit and familiar with Harry Potter, where they talk about trolls, and Gandalf and Bilbo kind of bait the trolls against each other overnight until the next morning, when, by the appearance of sunlight, the trolls are no more, because they don't do well in sunlight. So they go through their first battle with outside creatures, and then they go along their way, and they go into the town of Rivendell, where they meet Elrond, who is an elf. So they've met trolls and they've met elves. And Elrond is, again, the head of Rivendell, and he's very wise. And along with Bilbo and with kind of their supplies, Thorin has a map and to this mountain where Smaug is. And Elrond looks at the map, and because he's very wise, he deciphers it and says, okay, this, because there's real big letters and secretive letters on it and wordings, and he's like, okay, this is what this means, that there's actually a secret door in this mountain that you need to go through to get to Smaug. So Elrond helps them out. And so then again, they leave and they're on their way. And Bilbo is really taken with the elves. He enjoys them. He hasn't seen them because he's been in his little hobbit hole in his little area that's called the Shire. And he's really taken with the elves. So that's to be later on. But again, they go through... they go along their way again, and they're stopped by ogres, or orcs is what they know as in the Lord of the Rings, but in the Hobbit they're known as ogres. And the dwarves and Bilbo do get separated, and Bilbo falls through a hole in mountain ranges that they're in, and Bilbo is kind of scourging around, and he discovers a ring. And Bilbo thinks nothing of it because he's kind of confused on where he is and where his friends are. And so he just slips the ring in his pocket. And then down underneath, he comes across the character of Gollum. And he and Gollum, he introduces himself to Gollum as, I'm Bilbo Baggins from the Shire. And Gollum is really happy because he found something to eat. And so Bilbo and he go head to head with a riddles game where if Gollum wins, he gets to eat Bilbo. But if Bilbo wins, Gollum has to show him the way out. And so Gollum agrees. And so they go along with different riddles it's just kind of like story problem type things. And they go head to head for quite a while. And then Bilbo gets really tired of it. And he's kind of running out of ideas for riddles. And so finally he says, what have I got in my pockets? And Bilbo knows that he has a ring in his pocket. And Gollum starts thinking of just random things and goes on, says random things. So, and eventually Bilbo's like, nope, you already had all your guesses. I win. You have to show me the way out. And by this time, Gollum is very angry, and he goes and finds the ring himself, because Gollum all through this keeps talking about it's, again, his precious and his birthday present. And so in Gollum's mind, he is going to get the ring on and kill Bilbo. And Bilbo realizes that Gollum is kind of trying to kill him. So Bilbo is reaching into his pocket, and the ring comes on him. And he realizes that he's invisible, because now Gollum is like, where did he go? He's escaped. So Gollum kind of shows him the way out anyway, and without him even knowing. And then Bilbo goes out and eventually meets the others. And if you were familiar with the Hobbit movie that just came out, that's where, of course, that movie ends. But there is more to it. And so Bilbo and the dwarves reunite, and but of course, like I said, the dwarves get themselves in trouble. So over and over throughout this book, Bilbo and the dwarves get in trouble, and Bilbo saves them. And the first one, after Gollum, they get into they find spiders, which are similar to the spider she-lab in the Return of the King, but they're like her parents or her ancestors, and they sing. So I'm looking forward to that for the next movie, to see these singing spiders. Hopefully they do. And they also they also come across more elves, but these are wood elves. This would be like the predecessors to Legolas, like in his little family, but these aren't nice elves like Elrond and Rivendell. These wood elves take the dwarves and Bilbo prisoner, and they have them in dungeons. And Bilbo is able to escape, and also helps the dwarves escape, but and along the way they do come across men, and the men are from the lake town, and this is near the mountain range where Smaug is, which is called the Lonely Mountains, and the men know about Smaug, and they also want to get Smaug, but the dwarves kind of keep a secret of why they are there as well. And so the dwarves and Bilbo find the Lonely Mountains, and Bilbo goes in and meets Smaug and has a conversation with him, which is fun. And because Smaug can see Bilbo, or no, Bilbo has his ring on, so he can't see him, but he can smell him. And he's like, well, you don't smell like ogres, you don't smell like men, you don't smell like dwarves, you smell like something else. And so Bilbo is able to escape because Smaug doesn't realize him. And Bilbo, in the first meeting, takes a cup, and Smaug realizes this and goes out to find Bilbo. And while Smaug is out looking for Bilbo, the men of Lake Town kill him. So that's how Smaug dies. And so then Bilbo and the dwarves are able to go get their treasure. And however, one of the things that Bilbo gets, is an Arkenstone, which is part of Thorin's family, because Thorin comes from a big dwarf family. And Thorin realizes that this Arkenstone was taken, and Bilbo eventually comes clean and said, I did it. And so Thorin forgives him, and then, however, the wood elves and the men are starting to realize that and the goblins, or the wood elves and the men, all know where the treasure is, and they all feel that they should have their share. And so they fight, but they do eventually band with the dwarves and to fight the goblins, or ogres, and wargs, which are another type of ogre or orcs. So, and the last thing in this book that they battle is the Battle of the Five Armies. Because, again, you've got dwarves, elves, men, goblins, and wargs. So, but eventually that all happens, and they all go home. So, and Bilbo is able to go home with all this treasure, which, if you're familiar with The Lord of the Rings, that's, again, how he got the ring in the first place, and that's how he got all of his treasure. So, that's it. The next book that I'm going to read is The Help, by Catherine Stockett. And that's all for today, and I bid you happy reading.